Hi, I'm Roxanne Richardson, and this is the Casual Friday podcast. In this week's podcast, I have tidbits. I have an update on a pair of socks that I knit as a gift, and I tried a new knitting technique for stranded color work that I think might turn me into more of a fan. So let's get started. So I just wanted to give a heads up. If you live somewhere here in the upper Midwest, you might be interested, and you're not a member of the Minnesota Knitters Guild, we are having 2 retreats at the end of February, 2 3-day retreats. We are opening registration up to non-guild members on January 1st. Our retreat is really just a place to go, very nice accommodations. You're surrounded by other knitters. The food is provided for you. There are places to go and hike and walk outside if that's something you want to do. Or you can be in your room, or you could be in one of the community rooms. We have a big knitting circle where we have chairs that can accommodate all 24 people at the retreat, and so that we're all facing each other. And there's another community room where there is like a swift and ball winder, materials to do service knitting if that's of interest. We do bingo on the second night, which is optional. You don't have to play bingo, and there are prizes. And we have show and tell, and it's just a way to be in the company of other knitters. And there is a very nice yarn shop that's just right in Menominee. So it's kind of ideal. Like if you forgot to bring your needles, you can go run up to the yarn shop and get them. So it's a nice retreat. We have offered only one retreat in the past, and last year it filled in 5 minutes after we opened registration. So we wanted to be able to have 2 retreats so that more guild members could participate. But the only time slot we had available for us for 2026 was the week at the end of February. Starting in 2027, it'll be the end of April. So the dates are Monday, February 23rd to Wednesday, February 25th, so a weekday retreat. And then we have a weekend retreat, which is Friday, February 27th to Sunday, March 1st. And I will leave a link down below where you can go to the Guild website and learn more about the getaway. The Woodland Ridge Retreat, it's a lovely retreat center. There are 8 rooms, and they have 3 full-size beds in each room, so you do have to share, but they're huge rooms, and it's very luxury sort of accommodation. They all have a private bathroom that has a shower and a jacuzzi tub. The scenery, out the windows is lovely, and you really don't feel like you're being crowded together. If you want to sign up with friends, in your registration, you can put your friends' names on them, and as long as they put your name on their registrations as well, you can all room together if you want. I, many times in the past, have signed up for the retreat and just said, put me with whoever, and just got another guild member or another avid knitter, and it's been fine. You can spend a lot of time in your room if you want, but really you're just there to sleep, so it's not a big deal. If that's something you're looking for, a small size manageable retreat, there's not going to be a marketplace. Like I said, you can go to the yarn shop if you want, but it's really meant to just be a place to go and knit and share your knitting with others and get to know fellow knitters. So thought I'd let you know. I want to tell you about 2 podcasts that I have come across lately that I really like. The first one, my daughter sent me the last podcast that they had just uploaded, and I watched it and I'm like, oh, I really like this, and I went back and watched the rest of them. So they just started the podcast in, I think, probably September. They put it out every 2 weeks. It's called 2 Women Yelling About Knitting, and it's 2 friends, Allison and Angie Lee, and they live very far apart. One lives in the Washington, D.C. area on the East Coast, and the other one lives smack in the middle of the country in Colorado. And so they started this as an experiment to sort of give themselves time to talk to each other and it's about knitting, which they both love. This is not a podcast where they're showing you their latest thing that they made or the yarn that they just bought. They're talking about topics related to knitting that are things that are just sort of topics that people are discussing. But it's not about a specific garment or a specific designer or anything like that. So the episode my daughter sent me was kind of their bonus episode. They decided to start with season 1 would be 6 episodes, and then they'd see if that was something that they enjoyed and they wanted to keep doing, because they both work and they have jobs as well, and they have elementary school kids, so it's a lot. The episode that I watched was a bonus episode. Angie Lee had flown to Washington, D.C. for a work trip, and so the two of them went to a Smithsonian museum, one of the external smaller museums, where they have an exhibition on state fair crafts, and it's on exhibition until I think next September. And so they went there together, and they took pictures, and they talked about their experience there and what they thought of it. And some of you who've been watching me a long time know that the Minnesota State Fair is like a huge deal, especially to knitters here in Minnesota. It's the largest knitting competition, and just Minnesotans take their state fair seriously. So I was really interested in that topic. So I went and looked at some of the other things that they talked about. One of the things they talked about is, should you monetize your hobby? So that was the discussion for one of the podcasts. Another was one about the discussion around size inclusivity in knitting patterns, what that means and what the challenges are to that. So they're really interesting discussions. I will say I don't always agree with some of the points that they make, just because I have a different take on it, or I have a different experience than they have, or just additional thoughts that maybe they haven't had or whatever. But I think the discussions are really good and that they're valuable, and I really enjoyed this podcast. So again, it's called Two Women Yelling About Knitting, and they decided at the end of this first season that they really liked it. They liked having a planned time for them to get together and be able to talk to each other, and it's on their schedule. And so they're going to continue again in the new year. But in the meantime, there are 6 episodes plus a bonus episode on the State Fair exhibition that you can watch. And I will leave a link down below. The other podcast that I am listening to, I love this podcast so much, and there are so many episodes that I am not going to get tired of this. I can jump around in the past episodes, but they also put a couple of new ones out each week. It's called The Rest is History, and it is hosted by 2 British historians. I think they both had academic backgrounds, and then they left academia. They've both written tons of books. It's very entertaining. The hosts are Tom Holland, not the Spider-Man Tom Holland. It's this middle-aged historian, and Dominic, I want to say his last name is Sandbrook. When they discuss a particular topic, it's over multiple episodes. So they really go in deep on it, and they do so much research, and they're having these discussions. One of them might be sort of leading the discussion, but the other one is asking questions and clarification, and it's just so interesting. They just concluded this 5-part episode on Jack the Ripper, which I thought was just so interesting. They give us so much context, and they breathe so much life into what's going on in that time period, in that place. Just so interesting. I just started when I was at the farm yesterday scouring fleeces. I was listening to them talk about Greek mythology and the history and the historical context that goes alongside of the time period when people were believing in these, like when those myths first were written down, and what was going on, and how they had been communicated before, and then what was going on in the surrounding areas. And I just love it. Again, it's called The Rest is History. They do have one of these things where you can become a subscriber to get either early access, but sometimes just bonus episodes that you can't get otherwise. But there's so many hundreds of episodes. There's plenty to listen to. But I did subscribe because I think it is such a good podcast. It's so good. I can't emphasize it enough. Just really, really enjoying it. This last tidbit came to me from one of my college friends today. It's a trailer for a movie that's coming out in May 8th. It's called The Sheep Detectives. I'm like, what? What does that even mean? And so I started watching the trailer, and Hugh Jackman is a shepherd, and he's got this flock, and he's reading, like, I don't know if he's reading like mystery stories that he's writing or if he's just reading books to them because he lives alone in a trailer. I don't know. But it turns out he gets murdered, and nobody knows who did it. So the sheep can talk to each other. You know, when humans hear them, they're bah. But they've heard the shepherd read so many mystery stories to them over the years, they have an idea about how to solve a mystery. And so they decide to start, that they're going to solve the mystery and kind of work with the humans to help them solve it. It's a huge all-star cast, and Emma Thompson's in there and plays the lawyer. There's a lot of famous people doing the voices of the sheep. It just looks like it's going to be fun. It's based on a book that was published, I think, in 2005. It was originally published in German and was called 3 Bags Full. So who knows how closely the plot of the movie is going to follow the book. I certainly have not read the book, but it is coming out on May 8th, and I will leave a link to the trailer down below because it looks fun. And I think I know where I'm going to be on May 8th. I wanted to give you a little update on the socks I knit for my college roommate, Linda. I sent the socks to her last week, and she received them yesterday, which was her birthday, which was very nice. I'm glad she got them in time. I did ask her to send me a picture, and here's the picture here. She did say they're a little loose around the ankle and the heel, and I suspected they would be because I realized as I was packaging them up and I was knitting, had started the next pair for another college friend, that those socks seemed like the fabric seemed loose. And so I rechecked the needle I was using, and it was a size 1, not a size 0. So it was a 2¼ millimeter, not a 2 millimeter. And I'm like, well, I know I just put this needle that I'd used for Linda's socks back into the storage place, and that's where I got this needle from. I could not find my size 0 anywhere. It's the interchangeable, ChiaoGoo interchangeable, so it's a mini cable that's really thin, works really well for magic loop. I had used a fixed length size 0 for earlier socks for my friends, and it was bugging me, so I hunted down what I thought was my size 0, pulled them out of a stocking, one of my like antique stocking projects I was working on, pulled them out of that, and I thought that was a 0, and it was a 1. So I ended up buying another interchangeable 0 and cable, and because I need that, but I also wanted to know where my original one was, and it was in yet another sock that I have in progress. It's just so mad. I guess most of the socks I've knit this year have been on 6-ply sock yarn, so I've been using a little bit larger needles. So I thought they might be a little big around the ankle and the heel if there was going to be a fit issue, and that is just slightly too big for her. They fit otherwise, and I saw how they fit on her leg and her foot. And that informs me of how I will knit socks in the future. I might actually knit most of the leg on a size 1 needle for her because she likes them a little bit longer and just the shape of her leg. I think that would work well for her, and then go down in needle size as I get toward the ankle. So that the fabric would be tighter. But that's something about custom fit socks, is that you get the information ahead of time about the measurements, and you have an idea of how you want them to fit, and then you see how they do fit, because what I think fits perfectly well on somebody, they might actually have a preference for something that's a little looser or a little tighter. And so you kind of work over time, like, how does this one fit? Or you try a different heel on a different toe. do you have a preference over, of one over the other? I look at how they're actually fitting their feet personally, because a lot of times they don't know what could be changed and they think the sock is fine. And especially if they have hard to fit feet and they're used to socks not being very comfortable, if something is better than they've had before, they don't know that it could be even better potentially. So that's something I strive to do over time, is just tweak things. Even socks for myself, I experiment. I do different toes. I do different heels. I try things. I experiment to see what's going to work or what I might prefer, just because it's more fun to knit, or because I think it fits better. But I have solved the mystery of my lost needle, so I'm grateful for that. I don't knit a lot of stranded color work. And usually when I do knit something, it's like I like the result, but there's something about, I think it's a combination of things. One is because I have some slight color vision deficiency, color blindness, trying to pick more than a couple of colors that go together is intimidating to me. And then there's that struggle with, okay, these colors look good together, but is there going to be sufficient contrast when you try to do a stranded colorwork project? So, I have ways of seeing if there's enough contrast between colors, like you take a black and white picture of the colors together to see if there's enough contrast. That's one trick. Another trick is to get help from the clerk at the yarn shop, which is what I usually do. Or I will do something like, I've knit a lot of Christmas stockings for my family members, particularly my brother's family. And the trick is I ask them what color they like, and I get that in a dark and a medium, and then I add a natural cream color. And then I can mix and match all of those together and it works out. So I have the 3 colors. I have 2 shades of the same color, and then I have the neutral. And that is as far as I can go trying to pick colors. I just find it agonizing. And I really like knitting texture. I really like cables. I like knit purl patterns, like this sweater right here. This was a lot of fun for me. That's kind of what I enjoy doing, a solid or a tonal and texture. But I came across a way of doing stranded color work with both yarns in the left hand. I am mostly a continental knitter, and it was different enough that I thought, I wonder if that would work. And I did try it out on swatches a couple of years ago, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. The next time I do stranded color work, I'm going to try this. And then I just haven't done anything for a couple of years. Then I took a Portuguese knitting class at the beginning of October, and I thought, well, this is a really interesting way, and my tension was really good with it. And I do want to have another knitting technique kind of in my back pocket in case my hands or wrists or whatever get arthritic as I get older and I can't use my regular knitting style. And maybe I would like stranded color work better with Portuguese knitting. A lot of people find it a lot easier. So I wanted to try out both of these methods. My original idea was to do like a infinity cowl or a scarf, so knit in the round and then joined into a tube or not, using this doodle knit directory. I kept putting it off. And I'm like, why am I putting this off? This is something I want. I want something thicker and warmer around my face for our evening walks. Why am I putting this off? And part of it was trying to figure out the color combinations. I had bought 6 colors or 7 colors with the help of Ted at the Yarnery like a month ago. And I just kept stalling. And I finally thought, if I don't really like either one of these two, if it turns out I don't really enjoy stranded color work, I have committed myself to making something that's like 5 feet long and 20 inches in circumference, or or somewhere between 16 and 20 inches in circumference. And I thought, that is a lot of knitting. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start smaller. I'm going to start with a hat. I'm going to pick one of the techniques. I'm going to knit a hat with one of the techniques, and then I will knit another hat with the other technique. So that's what I did. I still have some ends to weave in, and you can see hanging down there. But I used the first technique. So the method that I normally would use with stranded colorwork is one yarn in my left hand, one yarn in my right hand. I am very proficient at knitting with either hand. I spent 20 years or more than 20 years knitting with the yarn in my right hand, but my knitting style required a long 14-inch straight needle that was anchored against my body. And when I wanted to start knitting in the round 20 years ago, I couldn't find a way to make that work. I tried long double-pointed needles and a knitting belt, and I couldn't get the needle positioned in a way that was comfortable for me. I tried learning other ways of knitting with the yarn in my right hand. Could not do it. So I thought, I'm going to learn a completely new way of knitting, just knit with the yarn in my left hand and struggle through that. And so it was a period of 4 years where I would knit in the round in stockinette, in continental, and then anytime I had to do ribbing, I would switch to anchoring the needles, and they were shorter tips because they were circulars or double points down against my thigh to do that. And then I would go back to continental for the stockinette parts. And over a period of 4 years, I experimented with so many different ways of purling until I found one that I felt maintained my knitting rhythm. The trouble, though, with stranded colorwork was that those two styles were not compatible. So for most people, the trick is either learning continental or learning English so that they can do stranded, and mine was getting the two to work together. So when I do stranded colorwork, I'm using a method of English knitting that is not my normal one. And so I can do it, but I don't love it. Anytime I tried holding both of them in my left hand, like my continental style, the two yarns would run together and it was just frustrating. So I didn't like doing that. So this new method does something that allows me to just continuously knit. And so let's go to the overhead and I'll show you what I did. Now, I recorded this demonstration a few days ago, so I don't remember if I said where I saw this method originally, so I'll tell you now. Originally, I saw it was an Instagram reel. No idea who the person was. I don't even think that it was somebody that I followed. And with Instagram, it's a terrible way to try to save something that you've seen and get back to it later. Like, it was like I had to look at it and try to practice it and just remember it as best I could because I didn't think I had any hope of finding it again. And then not too long after that, I was watching Trish on Fiber Love Diary. She does a lot of stranded colorwork and she holds both yarns in her left hand, and she showed how she does it. I'm like, that is very similar to what I saw on Instagram. But with Trish, I could go and look at that over and over again, and I could go back and find it on her channel again. I am using parallel floats in this piece of work. You have an option with stranded colorwork. You can do parallel floats, you can do rotating floats, you can trap yarns, you can do what's called weaving. There's just a variety of different ways that you can do stranded colorwork. I'm going to start with my background color, and I'm going to wrap it around my pinky like I would for any yarn in continental knitting. So I come under it, and I just turn my hand so that it's wrapping around like that. Now I'm going to take the other color, the dark blue one, and I'm also going to wrap around it. So I've got them both wrapped around my finger, and you do them separately so that they can tension separately. If you do them both at the same time like this, they can get wrapped around each other. So you do them separately, and then they will stay tensioned separately, and it will work better. So I'm putting both of them over my finger like I would do normally. Now I have found that I cannot do stranded color work with them both like this, which is why for years I've always done one in each hand. But what this technique does is it takes this strand, so this is the one that you want to be dominant, take it off and you reorient it like this. So there's more space between these stitches, and so one of them is further back and one of them is up closer. So I'm going to start doing this row of knitting that I've got highlighted right here. I'm going to show you how this works. Now this would be better if I had a needle that was the right circumference, but I always use a 32-inch circular needle, so I have to use traveling loop. So I'm going to do 2 pinks. And now I need to do one of the blues. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to reach down to the blue. So I'm coming underneath that pink to grab that blue. And now I need to do 2 more pinks. So they're very close together now, I mean, down here at the base, but I want to still make sure that I grab the pink from above. So I'm going to do 2 of those. And then I do the blue from below, pink from above, blue from below, 2 pinks from above, and the blue from below. What can happen with the first time after I do a blue and I want to do a pink, it can, you know, they look like they're crossed at the base, and so it can be a little tricky to try to separate those like that. But after you've done one, they're further apart and it's easy to do additional ones following that. So I think I have to do 3 now. Let me go in a little closer so that you can see even better. So I have to knit 1 blue, 2 pink from above, a blue, a pink, a blue, 2 pinks, a blue, and then I need to do 3 pinks, grab it from above. And you can see how they're further separated. Once I've done the first pink, they're more separated from each other. And that makes it easier. So again, they're kind of close to each other. I have to do 2 pinks. I did the first one and it's easy to do the second. Blue, pink, blue, pink, pink, blue, and then 3 pinks. 1, 2, 3. And the thing that I find really nice about this is because they're separated, I do find it easier to tension. Like sometimes the yarns, if I have a lot of slack out of the ball, they might get bunched up around here, but these stay separate. Sometimes if I have a really long span of pink I'm doing before I do a blue, this might slide off the end of my finger. I can put it back on. I just make a loop like that, so the strand connected to my hand is on top, so it's making that little cursive E so that the working yarn that's connected to the ball is behind, so I can replace that. So these are things that it took me a little while to adjust to, just to get used to it. Everything in knitting is always muscle memory. So it just takes practice, and I didn't want to show you how to do it until I'd gotten far enough along in this hat that I felt like I had made mistakes, figured things out, and could confidently knit like this. But I do really like this. I do prefer this to having one in each hand. I finished the hat. So my knitting is pretty even, but you know, it's strand of Colorwork, so it's not perfect. And what I am going to do is soak this, and then I will turn it inside out, and then I will use one of these spurtles that my brother made me, and then I will smash the back of it. Somebody suggested that the idea of doing this to the stitches is distributing the floats more evenly across the work in a similar way that when you are spinning fiber and you're hand spinning and you may not have the twist evenly distributed, when you have finished the yarn, you soak it, and then one of the things you do is like you go into the bathtub or the shower and you swing it around and you whack it. And so that the point of that is to distribute the twist more evenly, and you snap it, you know, just different things you do to try to distribute the twist. So that might be what the idea is behind this. I just know that for me, it works really well. And so I will show you here's the before, and then I'm going to go wash it and I'll whack it, and then tomorrow when it's dry, I will show you the result. The things I would do differently, I'd make it a little bit longer than it is. I'd extend the crown a little bit more. I'd make the bottom ribbing doubled up so that it could fully cover my ears and be folded back. And I might even put ear flaps on it. I think I probably have enough yarn for the second hat to do that. And that one I will do in Portuguese knitting if I can, and I'll try to take those design characteristics. So this will be a good hat for me, like in fall weather or mild winter weather. We take a walk every night at 5:30, and we have different levels of clothing depending on the temperature. So I have like a basic hat that I wear most of the time, and it does have a doubled up cuff at the bottom. And then when it gets below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is probably -6 Celsius, somewhere around there, then I take out a bulky weight hat that I can fold back. And then if it's below 0 Fahrenheit, well, it might even have to be lower than that. It might have to be like -10 Fahrenheit, which is probably -20 Celsius or so. Then I take out a hat. It's similar to the Musselburgh hat, except that it was designed by Elizabeth Zimmerman decades ago, but it's a 2-layer hat. So it's 2 layers and the brim folds back. So then you have like 4 layers here. And that one I wear when it's what we would call bitter cold here. So this kind of hat would be good maybe in the fall or spring when I don't need the doubled up brim. So I will show you. I don't look good in hats. It's completely functional for me. So you can see my little stocking cap with the stockings on it and snowflakes. So I do like it. It does mostly cover my ears, but as a Minnesotan, I really want more covering up my ears. Well, that's it for this week's Casual Friday. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rox Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.